want to welcome you all to this workshop, and I am thrilled to be here with you all to talk about how to make your children's book dreams a reality. And this is a subject that is very near and dear to my heart as an author of two children's books who really never thought that that would be a possibility, a thing that I would be able to do, but very much was. And I found that it's very possible for other people too. So this is really fun to be here with all of you. By way of introduction, my name is Becca Carnahan. I am a career coach, I'm a mom, and I'm an author of these two books I have in my hands here. We got Belinda Baloney and Benji Baloney. Um, and I see some familiar faces coming in too, so I want to say hi, Bethany, who's joining us. So my experience comes from working as a career coach. That's what I do by trade. I'm a career coach. I worked at Harvard Business School. I coach mid-career parents. I'm a mom of two kids, and that's really what got me started with this idea of wanting to write a children's book because I was reading a lot of children's books. My kids right now are 8 and 9. Uh, so I was reading a lot of books and we were telling a lot of stories. And that's where this idea of, you know what, maybe I could do this too. Maybe I could have my own children's book and what might that idea be? So it was always kind of brimming there in the back of my mind. And once this idea, I'll tell you a little bit more about the process of how I wrote my children's books and how you can write and publish and illustrate your children's books as well. But the big message I want to leave all of you with tonight, if you remember one thing from this, is that this is very much a possibility. This is something that you can do. It can take much less time than you think it will. This is something that could happen for you in 2025. The book that you have on your heart, in your mind, can be very real in your hand, in your public library, and available in for people to buy. So it's just so exciting because when I see people actually following through with their idea that they have in their brain and being able to see that real, tangible book in their hands, it's such a magical feeling. And I really want that for you because I know it's possible. So, what we're going to cover today is really the three different areas. We're talking about writing your children's book, illustrating your children's book, and publishing it. Because I think the first one for a lot of people, the writing might come a little bit easier. You have an idea, you have some thoughts you want to put down on paper, but illustrating and publishing, you're not really sure where to go next with that. So we're going to dive into all three of those. We're going to start with write though, because that's where the idea really needs to come from. You need to have an idea that you want to put down on paper. So let me tell you a little bit first about my first children's book, Belinda Baloney Changes Her Mind. And this is a story I wrote about a little girl who is trying to figure out what she wants to be when she grows up. So I mentioned earlier, I'm a career coach. So my business side of my brain was working together with my mom side of my brain when I wrote this book and really helping kids understand and adults, quite honestly, that when you might have an idea of what you want to be when you grow up, but there's no pressure to make that decision, the final decision, at any point. We can be growing and changing and evolving throughout our lives. So this question that we ask kids a lot, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's a great question as long as we keep asking that question. We keep asking it of ourselves as we grow up to give ourselves options. So that's what Belinda Baloney is about. And it's a rhyming book because as a parent, I really enjoyed a book to read to my kids that had rhymes. I thought it was more fun to read out loud. So that's the book that I wrote. And how it really started was that I had been thinking about the idea of writing a children's book, but got in the car one day, was driving into work, and the ideas just came to the surface. And I can't really explain it, but just the thoughts, the ideas around this idea of Belinda Baloney was the character name that popped into my brain, and then the rhyme started to follow around what she wanted to be when she grows up and how she changed her mind along the way. So, as a busy parent, I found the best way that I could to capture these ideas was to record it in my phone. So, I was driving into work, I pressed record on the voice memo and just started spilling out ideas. and rhymes as they came to me, and basically wrote most of the book through voice memos. And this can work for you too. If you have an idea for a children's book, you have an idea for a character, sometimes inspiration just comes as you are going about your life. So I really encourage folks to brainstorm out your children's book, think about your ideas. You can do them through voice memos, take notes on your phone, do what works well for you. You don't need to go on a 7-day writing retreat to write your children's book. It can be done in pieces, in a brainstorm, in voice memos, and then bring it back together. If you are able to go on a 7-day writing retreat, that's amazing. But I know for many people that's not the reality. So let's find a way to make this work for your life. And then once you have those ideas in place, now we need to do something with them. And that's where this concept of storyboarding really comes in. So you have your ideas, you have the characters in mind, you have the plot in mind. Let's break it down into more of a beginning, middle, end. Because we've seen a lot of children's books when you read the book and you're like, what just happened here? What is this nonsense? Because it doesn't really have a clear beginning, middle, and end. And we know that our brains as adults click into story, children's brains click into story. So let's give them a good one that they're able to really connect with the character, connect with the storyline, have there be an obstacle that they're facing and a resolution at the end. So once you have that laid out, you have your ideas, you have your general plot and storyline, then it's starting to go into maybe actually writing page by page how this is going to look in a book. So the very straightforward way that I did this was in a Word document and broke it down by what kind of content would go on each page. So quite honestly, did a little bit of Googling and picked up a lot of my children's books. How long is a children's book? I really didn't know the answer to that. And the industry standard, as I found, is around 32 pages. So that's what I used as a jumping off point. I had this idea, I had the brainstorm, I had the characters, the plot. Now I needed to break it down into around 32 pages for a children's book with illustrations. So think about that. If you're writing an illustrated children's book, that's going to be about the length you're looking for. The next thing to keep in mind as you are writing the content is the audience. So yes, your audience is likely children, but what is the age range? My children's books are generally geared for more the K through 3 set. Certainly have been enjoyed by older and younger, but that seems to be the sweet spot for these books. Yours might skew a little bit younger, might skew a little bit older. One thing I was thinking about as I was writing the children's book and then actually going to publish was that I had seen my kids absolutely destroy a paperback. So I wanted to be a hardcover book because I knew this was for some kids on the younger end of the spectrum. I also wanted the writing and the rhyme to really resonate with that audience. But also keep in mind the parents, because they're the people who are likely reading the book to the kid. So are there things you want to think about in terms of that audience as well? Whether it is a lesson you want to teach in the book, or it is in the marketing that you're doing. Perhaps you're marketing to kids, but also to adults. So keeping in mind your audience, who is your age range, that's going to come in handy when you are marketing the book as well. The other thing as you're writing is style. So I chose to write the book in a more of a poem style. There's a rhyming scheme, absolutely not required. You've probably read plenty of children's books that have rhymes, some that don't. I enjoyed it. That was the style that worked well for me. Think about what works well for you as you're writing and keeping this length in mind. And then the last piece too is the characters. Oftentimes we're coming in with a main character in mind, but do you want to bring in some other characters? How do you want those characters to interact? Again, when I was writing this children's book, this is not something I took months and months to do. This was probably over a couple of days, really, was sitting down with some of these key things in mind, and then fleshing them out, editing it, making some changes over time. So that's the writing. And now we're going to get into more the illustration and the publishing. Because, like I said, oftentimes I'm hearing from folks that, okay, I have the idea, I've even written it out, but now how do I make this a book that someone's actually going to want to pick up and read? We need pictures for a children's book. You need that to connect with your audience. So the next is the illustration. So there's a few different options that you can think through as you're getting ready for your children's book illustration options. So the first, which some people will do, is to self illustrate. That was not my skill set. My skill set was in the rhyming and coming up with the story, but the idea of drawing out the pictures, knew that wasn't something that I was really feeling confident in my ability to do. So that wasn't on the table for me. It could be on the table for you. So if you are really good at drawing on the computer, you're really good at drawing by hand, you can then take those illustrations, and if you're not only sure how to do more the color piece of it, you can hire a graphic designer to add some of the color. There's options here if you want to self illustrate and then scan those images in to get them in for your book. The next option is to look for your own illustrator. So if you're doing this route, which is actually what I did and sort of fell into this by accident, was to find my own illustrator. And the illustrator of Belinda Baloney and then later Benji Baloney was actually my sister-in-law. So I was talking about Belinda Baloney. I had this idea for a book, and I said, oh, but now I need to find an illustrator. I'm not really sure where to even start with that. And what she said to me, she's like, I've always wanted to illustrate a children's book. So what we did is that she started to take pen to paper, draw out some of his ideas. We worked with someone to then add the color in because she was more of a black and white artist. Someone helped us with adding the color, and then we had these illustrations that we could add to Belinda Baloney. So that's an option. Think about it from your life. Do you have friends and family that you could collaborate with? That's amazing if you have that option. And if you don't have that option, I'm going to go back here one second. There are other places where you can find an illustrator. So there are, if you go onto a website like the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, it's a membership that you can join, and there are lots of children's book writers, but also illustrators in that group. And you can look through portfolios, connect with illustrators that way. That is an option. You'd be hiring that illustrator to do that work for you. You wouldn't necessarily be collaborating on the book and then splitting royalties after the fact. You would be paying that illustrator upfront. So that's one option, Society of Children's Book Illustrators and Authors. I've also heard some people will go through, find people on Fiverr or an Upwork, lots of different places you could look to find your own illustrator. However, I know that can be a little overwhelming for people to, okay, I have all these options. I could look for an illustrator on all these sites, but I don't know. Maybe I've seen their portfolio, but it feels a little bit disjointed to me. So that's where this next option of working with someone like Gatekeeper Press can be a really good option. So Gatekeeper Press offers publishing packages, which we'll talk about in a minute, as one of the several options you can think about for publishing your children's book. And one of them is to work with them on a children's book package where you have illustrators that you can work with through the company. So they work with illustrators that they can then pair you up with. And I'll let Tony share more about this. We're lucky to have Tony Cellini here, the co-owner of Gatekeeper Press, on with us on the webinar, so we can talk a little bit more about some of these options as we go. But I'm excited that is an option for folks, because I was really lucky to have my sister-in-law. But if I was to go and do this again and my sister-in-law was not available to illustrate another book, this would be the option I would go, because these are illustrators that Gatekeeper Press has worked with. They are people that you can then work with directly, and be able to go back and forth to share your vision as you're creating that book together. But as you're paying them just in a really simple upfront way through the Gatekeeper Press package. So that's another option as well. You don't have to self illustrate. You can. You don't have to. You can. You don't have to find your own illustrator. You can. This is just another option on the list to get some pictures to go along with all of your great words and your ideas. So now here's another biggie, the publishing. So Let's say you have your story written out, you have your characters, it's all written out, you have your illustrations, or at least you know how you're going to get illustrations for your book. What you're going to do next is wanting to get that book out there into the world. So that's the publication process. So we're going to talk through 3 different ways you could publish this book. So I hope you're seeing the theme that there are options here. There's not one right or wrong way to publish a children's book. There are many different options, and you need to pick and choose about what works well for you. The one that you might be most familiar with is traditional publishing. So this is the big publishing houses that are selling their books, and people are that used to be really one of the only ways that someone was publishing a children's book is that they would first get a literary agent or an editor to want to advocate for their book, who would then sell the book to one of the major publishers, who would then market and publish the book. I'll tell you, I talked about the fact that I've published 2 children's books. I've actually also published a third book, which was a nonfiction book, more for on the career coaching side. And this was the route that I took with my nonfiction book, was traditional publishing. And the process was to write what they call a query letter. So if you ever applied for a job and it requires a cover letter, very similar. You're writing a query letter to send out to literary agents mostly, who are looking to take on book projects that they can then sell to publishers. But you first have to get their attention. So you can look for literary agents. Again, the Society of Children's Book Authors and Illustrators is one way that you can find those literary agents, their contact information or who they are. Pitch them with the query letter. If they're interested, they'll follow back up with you to get more of a full length overview of the book, maybe some sample illustrations if you're illustrating it yourself. And ultimately, they'll decide if it's a project that they want to then take on and try to sell for you to major publishers. The benefits of this is that if you are successful in getting a major publisher to publish your book, then they are doing a lot of the marketing for you, pushing the book out there through distribution. Some of the negatives of this is it certainly takes a longer time. You are trying to get the attention of literary agents, trying to get the attention of publishers. That can take a while. And you may not be successful with this ultimately, because literary agents are getting a lot of requests. They're getting a lot of query letters. They're reading through a lot of projects and deciding what they want to move forward with. Another thing on the downside is that if you are working with a publisher, they may have a little bit more creative control. So if you have an idea for a book, they may want to take it in a different direction. And then ultimately you'll have to decide if you want to go in that direction with them, or if that's going against the idea that you had for the book. A traditional publisher will also take a fairly large percentage of what you're making from the book. So I know we're not all in this to become multimillionaires as we're writing children's books. For many people, it's a passion project, but it can also become a form of income for you. In traditional publishing, they're going to take usually about 60 to 70% of what you're making from the book. With my traditional publishing book, I was making 30% of the royalties. So there was some benefits in that there wasn't, from an upfront cost perspective, I wasn't paying an upfront cost. However, I certainly wasn't making the same amount royalties that I could from the book going forward. So that's the traditional publishing route. Happy to answer questions about that as we continue to go through. The other option is self-publishing. So what I mean here by self-publishing is like truly self-publishing. So taking your idea that you have for your book, you are writing the book, you are finding your illustrator, you are working together with that illustrator to not only put the book together, but to format it really. So where's the text going? Where are the pictures going? Is it a full page spread of the picture? Where's it going to be? How is it going to bleed across the 2 different pages? If you have an image that goes across too. You are handling all of this stuff. And once you have really worked through all of that process, the writing, the illustrating, the formatting, and getting your ISBN number, and you're working with the Library of Congress to get all of some of the legal nitty gritty stuff to do with your book, then yes, you can upload it into a Kindle Direct Publishing, for instance, and fully self-publish and get your book out there onto a place like Amazon, and or work with a local printer and even print it out that way. Most times when I'm hearing people say self-publishing, they're doing it more through a Kindle Direct Publishing. So that is an option. Again, I think there's some positives here is that from a creative control perspective, you got all of it. You're doing that from start to finish. Uh, and from a royalties perspective, absolutely, you're making everything from that book. Negatives that you do need to be able to know how this works from start to finish. You need to be able to format that book properly, upload all those files in exactly how you want them to look in a book, which can be, at least it was for me, quite overwhelming. I didn't know what to do with this. So traditional publishing, I knew it was going to take a long time. Self-publishing made me a little scared, to be honest, to try to do it all on my own. Um, the other option is more of this hybrid publishing model. There's probably lots of different names you could use for this, but it is this idea of working with a publishing house who will support you through the process and help you with the formatting, and but you are still marketing and owning your book. It's probably the best way I can describe it. When I talk about a little bit more about my experience working with Gatekeeper Press in more of this model, I'll share with you some more details. But what I really appreciated about hybrid publishing was that I had some experts with me to say, all right, here's what you need for the spine of the book. Here's how you go about the process of we'll actually do it for you to get your ISBN, which is that little, if you look on the back of a book, I don't know if you can see it here, my light, but the code there on the back. You need to get some of this stuff to make it available for people to publish, for libraries to be able to stock it. These are important things as part of the process. And since I knew very little about how to do that, having some publishing pros in my corner was really, really helpful. As long as with some other pros that I'll share with you here in a second. So, and Tony, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of consider Gatekeeper Press kind of this hybrid model.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that that's pretty accurate. I mean, I always like to say we're a premium publishing service provider because at the end of the day, like you kind of said, with self-publishing, a lot of people think it's kind of the do-it-yourself, truly self-publishing. But with the one of the things with hybrid, and I kind of like makes me hesitate a little bit on using that is because a lot of hybrid publishers take a percentage of their author's royalties and ownership
Hmm.
rights. So it's kind of a mix, and we never do that. So I never want that to be confused. But you're absolutely right. When it comes to customer service, concierge level attention, advice, guidance, direct communication with the editors and formatters and designers, it's more of that hybrid approach because we're really focused on giving that premium quality that you're just not getting with self-publishing or in the other avenues. So yeah.
Yeah. So maybe I should have put four options, honestly, on this page. There could have been four options, was more of this like maybe this hybrid where you are working with someone they're taking some of the royalties, and then there is this option of working with Gatekeeper Press, which I was really lucky to find, honestly, when I was going about this process. And I published Belinda Baloney in 2020. So it's been a little bit now.
Yeah.
It's been 4 years. And I wish I could tell you, Tony, how I found Gatekeeper Press. I don't know. It was a very lucky Google, I think, at this point. But I'm really glad that I did, because when I was looking at options for what maybe I considered to be self-publishing or hybrid publishing or premium publishing, I really didn't know the right language for it.
Yeah.
But I wanted help. I probably Googled help with publishing my children's book.
Yep.
Um, and here's where we landed. And why I ended up choosing to work with Gatekeeper Press on this was for many reasons. One, I talked about before, that I just like didn't know what I was doing. So doing it fully on my own was very intimidating. Um, but also that I really wanted to have creative control. I had this
Yep.
vision of what I wanted this book to look like, what I wanted it to feel like. Working with my sister-in-law, we wanted the characters to be a certain way. And you're like, you know what? We don't want to give that any of that up. we want to own this fully. So we never even considered doing traditional publishing with Belinda Baloney, or then Benji Baloney after. We wanted to own all of it. So that's what we did. We wanted to own all of it. So having that creative control, and Gatekeeper Press was going to fully give us that option. This was ours. We owned everything about the book, how we wanted to do it, but we had the experts alongside us. So we had an author manager throughout the entire process, who I'm actually working with again now, right now for a next book, which I'm really excited about. Uh, and she was able to help us format. So we would send her pictures and say, Kelly, I think we want this little vignette of a picture with this text. I don't know, how does that look? And she was really good at working with the team there to be able to say, all right, what if we moved this picture over here? I think this text here, like, how do you think about this font? Really giving us some ideas on how to make the book look, because it's not just about the text. But is about how it looks too, because you want a kid to want to pick it up. You want a parent to want to pick it up and read that book over and over again. So the formatting really does make a difference. And having professionals be able to move stuff around and make it look good for us, was huge. But then also the distribution. This was something really interesting to me as I was going about this process. I knew from a traditional publishing, okay, you can buy a book in a bookstore, but more than likely you're going to buy it online because that's how we do a lot of our shopping. Um, but how would I get my book available on an Amazon, on a Barnes and Noble, or through an indie bookstore? Didn't know. Gatekeeper Press was able to do that for us. So once we got the book ready to go, we had it all formatted, we were ready to market and sell the book. They were able to get the book available to stores to want to carry that book. So um, it's not in physical stores except for some local stores around me, but Belinda and Benji Baloney are both available on Amazon. They're both available on Barnes and Noble, available on Target. I think I've seen them on Walmart. There's been a lot of on the different websites where you can find these books. It makes it super easy. I did not do a single thing to make it be on Barnes and Noble. That was Gatekeeper Press, making sure that once the book was ready to go, it was distributed so that those companies would be able to then sell it on their websites. So that was great. I mean, it was so cool to be able to Google the name of my book and see it pop up in a few different places, including some independent bookstores too. There's an online, more independent bookstore network, and it was available through those stores as well, which was really cool. And then Tony mentioned this earlier that we get 100% of the royalties of the book. So my sister-in-law Sarah and I, we share the royalties from these books, and we get 100% of what we make back. So yes, there's printing costs that you need to take into consideration, but after the printing costs, um, and whatever the percentage the companies, the Amazons, the Barnes and Nobles are taking off from there to make money. That's what they do, their stores. Then we're making 100% royalties. And that's all coming back to us, in a really simple way, actually, just through the Gatekeeper Press website. I can see exactly how many we've sold each month. We monthly getting those royalties back to us. So that's been really cool to be able to go and track to see what are the different ways and places the book is being sold through that dashboard, and then to make that money back. So we did make an investment in working with Gatekeeper Press, but then we were able to do really well with the book and have it be successful so that we got 100% of the royalties back and then could end up making money, having it be an income stream, which is pretty wonderful. So that's my why Gatekeeper Press. Again, there are options, and I just want to reiterate that. And when I was getting ready to do this webinar and talking with Luis and talking with Tony, what I thought was really cool about the two of them was that just share your journey, share what you learned from this experience, and if people want to work with us, that's cool. If they want to do something else, that's cool too. They were really all about making sure that authors are finding what works best for them. this is what worked best for me. If you want to go do it more traditional publishing, do more self-publishing, those are certainly options. There are lots of ways to get your children's book out there. This is one of them. I recommend it to a lot of people because I think it worked really well for me. You just got to find out what works best for you. So now, before we open it up more to questions and kind of talking things out, just wanted to share some next steps. So if this is something you're interested in working with Gatekeeper Press, I'm including their website. I'm there. Um, and they were kind enough to give a discount code for everyone who's joining here too. So the discount code is Becca-Carnahan. It's actually 20% for the month of December, which is pretty huge. So if you're thinking about this, you can use that discount code, pop my name right in there, and that'll work for you, which is really cool. But I also wanted to put my Instagram, and I can email is fine too. But if people want to ask me any follow-up questions after this, or if you're not here live on the webinar and want to ask me some questions, feel free just to shoot me a message on Instagram. I'm happy to answer questions that way. Or just my email is becca@beccacarnahan.com. So that's actually really easy too. Feel free to message me. I'm happy to answer questions offline after this about any of the options for doing publishing your children's book. And click, there was one that maybe came in the chat. So I want to say, oh no, Luis is just good enough to add in the free publishing guide. I forgot to mention that. There's a free publishing guide in there if you want to click on that to get more information, scheduling a consultation with Gatekeeper, and then the discount code. So that's all in there if you want. But now we're going to open it up just for questions. And Tony, I apologize. I didn't actually formally introduce you earlier. Just said, hi, Tony is here.
No worries.
So let me turn it over to Tony just for a minute to say hi and hello to everyone. And then we're just going to open this up to Q&A and we talk about Gatekeeper. Tony's going to handle those questions. We can talk about just children's book writing and publishing in general, and I'm happy to help there. So Tony, do you want to say hi?
Just hello, everyone. I'm Tony. I'm one of the owners here at Gatekeeper Press. Just want to say thank you, Becca, and thank you everyone for showing up to this workshop. I'm happy to answer any questions, and then of course, Becca can handle some questions too. So fire away.
Yeah. So you can unmute yourself if you want to. If you want to just pop a question in the chat. Um, while we're waiting to see if any questions do come in, I'd say that one of the most common questions I get from people is just, all right, what do I do next? Is after I have this children's book idea. And I think one of the best things you can do is really just to write it out, try to put it onto those 32 pages and just see what it looks like. See what it looks like in your mind. And then once it starts to feel more real, once you have this idea that you break it into the pages, I think that was a huge motivator for me to say, all right, I can actually start to see this in my mind's eye of what this looks like. And that was a big motivator for then going to find an illustrator and really kickstarting the process. Just scrolling through to see if there are any questions. Don't be shy. Let me know if anything's coming to mind.
Hi, Becca.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you? Who's
Good.
talking? I can't
This
see
is
the, oh, okay.
Bethany Hall.
Oh, hi, Bethany. Hey.
Hi. We've talked about this before. I'm just wondering, can you kind of walk through like what a consultation conversation could look like? Like
Oh, yeah.
how far along do you need to be kind of with ideas? Yeah, just a sense of what like the consultation could look like.
Yeah, I actually had one with Tony like 2 days ago. So, because I was planning on doing another nonfiction book with Gatekeeper, so I
Awesome.
basically signed up. So, how you start really is that when you go onto Gatekeeper, and Tony, correct me if I'm saying any of this wrong as I'm going, but just my experience with it.
Yeah.
There's different publishing packages. I think that's always helpful to look at first.
Mhm.
Like, okay, what do I need? Do I have my book idea fully mapped out?
Mhm.
Do I already have my illustrations? Do I need editing? So it's kind of like mentally going through like looking at the packages and
Sure.
saying, do I feel like I need some of this, some of that? Because there are like more a la carte options too, a la carte options. So before you have the consultation, I think just mentally kind of check through like what are some things that I already have.
Mhm.
But then the consultations largely are, Tony, they're largely with you and with
Yep.
your co-owner,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Our CEO. Yeah. I take probably
Yeah.
90% of them, but yeah, I work with all of our prospective authors one on one,
Yeah.
pretty much. Yeah.
So yeah, you're getting Tony. He knows all of the stuff. When you have that consultation, and I feel like you can come in to that call knowing a lot or knowing a little. And what I really appreciated in my call that I had the other day with Tony, was that I said, okay, I think I only need this and this. And he
Mhm.
wasn't like, oh, but you should go do this too. He was like, yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
You only need
Yeah.
that and this. So here's this package, to do that. And this is the best way that you don't need to spend that extra money. Um, so I think that what the consultation looks like is having an idea of what you don't have to have it fully baked, but
Mhm.
have an idea of what you're looking for, and then talk through some of the package options with them. Well, like what that could look like, what the services are. They're not, Tony's not going to pressure you. I can tell from experience that he's not gonna push you on it. If it's not the right fit, he'll probably tell you to, like, you know what,
Yeah.
maybe go do this instead.
Yeah.
So it's
Great.
worth your 15 minutes or whatever it is just to
Yeah.
check it out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Good to see you, Bethany.
You too.
Okay, we have
Hi.
another question
Hi,
in the chat.
Becca.
Oh yeah, hi Jamie.
Hi. I just wanted to thank you so much for putting this on. I do have to scoop, but I wanted to let you all know, Tony and Louise, that I will be reaching out. I'm very excited about this.
Awesome.
I have my draft ready to go. I just didn't know where to begin on next steps. I
Great.
was in that
Yay.
same whirlwind. So thank you so much. This is
Y-
amazing.
Oh, I'm
And
so excited
I
for you.
thank you. I
Yes.
can't wait to get going.
I can't
Yeah,
wait to chat with you. Awesome.
it's like Jamie, it's like the best feeling. So however it's just like it's so cool. I was even like nerding out as I picked up the book again. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I have this in my house.
It's so
Um,
cool. It really is. It's
yeah,
amazing.
and
And
something that is always going to be yours. So which way you go with it, I think this is awesome. And thanks for being here.
thank you. And thank you for posting on Facebook. I don't know if you remember me. I went to high school with you, Jamie Gilbride.
Oh my
It's been a while. But a friend sent your post over. She knew that I was writing something.
I
So this is
wouldn't have
amazing.
like it's been a very long time, Jamie.
It has been a very long time. I know high school was like so long ago.
But as soon as
But
you said Gilbride, I knew exactly. So I'm glad they posted it on Facebook too. I'm glad that
yes,
I'm excited for you.
thank you.
Yeah.
I do have to get my children to bed, but thank you
Yes.
so much. Have a
Yeah.
great night, everyone, and I'll
Yeah,
be in
you
touch.
too.
Take
Yeah.
care.
Sounds great.
Congratulations on your books too. Bye.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
Uh,
you. I have a question.
yeah.
Do you have to go somewhere to publish it?
Do you have to go somewhere? That's such a good question. So I didn't have to go anywhere. I did it all from my house. So what I did is that I worked with a company who was able to publish it for me. So they were able to do all the work of taking all the pictures and the words and getting it onto the paper and then finding the company to put it into a book.
Okay,
So
thank
that
you.
would be really hard to go find someone to find a hardcover book, and write it all in, but that was what the company did for me.
Okay, thank you.
That's a great question. Oh, I think there's another question in the chat. So Caitlin said, okay, no, I think this is a great question. She asked about how long it might take to sell enough books, to get an investment back. And I think that's a great question. I wish I had my numbers up in front of me. But I will tell you that I have absolutely made the investment back. I've probably sold Belinda Baloney. I don't know where the crossover was exactly because it's been a long time since I have made the investment back. But I've probably sold about maybe 600, 700 copies of Belinda Baloney. But it was a long time before that I was able to make an investment back. So I think keep in mind that you can set the price for your book. You have different options for if you want it to be a hardcover book or a paperback book. Um, that there are people who will also do like you can also have an ebook copy, which seems like it might be like, I don't know how many kids would have an ebook, but what I learned through this process is that, yeah, actually, I do sell ebooks of
Mhm.
Belinda Baloney and of Benji Baloney. So that was really cool too. When I was thinking about the package, I was like, I don't know if I need ebook. And they're like, well, it's, you can or you can't. We do actually end up seeing people make sales that way. And I can see from the dashboard that absolutely do. So I think through your options there about what kind of package makes the most sense for you. If you want to be able to publish it in all the different formats, is there a single format that you want to have it in? And then what's the price point that you want to set? Something else too that I did is that I had the book for especially for both of the books when they both came out. I bought a big kind of stack of books directly from Gatekeeper at my author price. And again, Tony, correct me if I'm saying any of this wrong, but there was a discount I could buy a bunch of books, and then I was able to sell them through my
Yep.
own website too. So like direct sales is an option. You didn't have to just sell it through a Barnes and Noble or an Amazon. Um, so I sold a big bunch of books at the very beginning, kind of signing them and customizing them for people, and doing it through my website. So that was a nice way to make some investment back early in the process, but then it continues to roll over. So hopefully that helps answer your question. I think that's a really good and smart question, just to know what the timeline might look like. You're welcome, Caitlin. You're welcome. Tony, did I get that right?
You did, yes. I mean, selling through the retailers is great, but as you mentioned, they all take a percentage. And Amazon, Ingram, Barnes and Noble, they take a percentage of your retail price. So when you can sell direct as well, that's always advantageous to you because you cut out that middle entity, that
Mm-hmm.
retailer, and you pocket that money that otherwise they'd be taking. I mean, really, it also highlights making sure you work with the publisher, hopefully us, but you work with a publisher where you own all your rights because
Yeah.
a lot of times there are a lot of publishers out there that will restrict your ownership rights and won't allow you even to sell your book on your own or do what you want with your book. So just making sure you keep all of your ownership rights, making sure you keep all of control and have approval over the book, making sure you keep all your royalties, those should be non-negotiables, and those are things that you definitely should have in play for yourself with your publisher. And those are all things obviously that all of our authors get when they publish with us. So
Yeah. And again, I think I lucked into, again, I didn't know what I was doing when I was doing this. So I feel really lucky that when I ended up going with, like, talking with Gatekeeper Press and talking like with Tony about this, it was like, oh yeah, here are all the things that you should be looking for. He was really clear about that. I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about that. I just figured is my book, so I can do what I want with it. And which was exactly the case with Gatekeeper Press. But I remember when I first published Belinda Baloney, I did like some pre-orders through my website, and I had this room that I'm sitting in was like stacks of books all around me. And it was really awesome actually, to have these like stacks of books and then sending them out. I knew the post office folks very well for about a month because I was popping in and out of there with my books. And I don't know, it felt really cool. And even now, sometimes I'll do an author order and buy, I have like a stack right now, of my books, but I don't always keep them here at my house. Sometimes I'm just like, you know what, I'm going to have people just go right through Amazon, Barnes and Noble. If it's around a
yeah.
holiday, I might grab some and then do them through my own website or through direct. I'm sure you can sell your books through social media. You can do whatever you want, your books. But that's just a nice option.
Yep. And one thing you mentioned earlier too about the ebook. So a lot of our packages for children's books, they include all three versions, hardcover, paperback, and ebook. One of the big things on ebook is you would think a children's book as an ebook, a lot of people get hesitation on that, but a lot of parents travel with their children and they don't want to carry 10, 15 books with them. So reading off their iPad or e-reader is really advantageous. And that's probably why you're seeing sales. And that's why it is a sales mechanism, an avenue for children's book authors. But then also having the softcover version too. Hardcover versions are the more traditional version for a children's book. They're more expensive to print, so the retail price will be a little bit higher. Having that softcover version, which is less expensive to print, lower retail price, can cut more people into the market as well.
Mhm.
So I always say let the customer decide what works best for them, and that's why having all three options are available or as available to them is
Mhm.
probably the best business sense for you.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And so again, I published these books like 4 years ago. So I'm not sure. I know I really wanted a hardcover. I was very hard set on having a hardcover book. I was just going to see my kids rip open like books. I was just like getting so anxious about it. if I were to do it again, I would probably do exactly what Tony said, is just to have all three options. Because people have asked me since, like, oh, does it come in like more like the soft cover too? Because I wanted to buy more in bulk, and that was like less expensive. And I was like, oh, I should have done that. So Tony, I might come back and talk to you actually
Yes,
about
we'll set you up.
getting
Yeah.
Belinda Baloney in soft cover. But that's been nice too, to be able to go back and do other like do you need to add something different? Do you need to change something? Like work, like that's been really nice to have people I can go back to and talk with, have these questions to.
Yeah, yeah, we have a whole post publication support team to be there for you for
Mhm.
life. So we're partners for in life for this. As long as you're obviously free to take your book away from us at any point, but otherwise we're partners for life. And you have that dashboard connecting you to us. So where your sales reports are there, your order author copies. So it's pretty cool. The dashboard is cool. I'm glad you pointed that out earlier.
Yeah, I
Just
love
be
the
able to see
dashboard.
everything that's going
I'm
on.
such a
Yeah,
nerd
I
about the
geek out on
dashboard.
that kind of stuff. It's great.
I saw someone was, are you guys, are your kids raising your hand up there?
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
two questions. We are three young writers, and would we sell them on Amazon or like at a bookstore, do like a book tour?
Oh, I love this question. This is great. So you can sell your books on Amazon. You can also, you could have your books, and you could absolutely go on, do a book tour and talk to your local bookstores and bring your books there and have people buy them at a local bookstore and sign them there. So you can definitely do that. And there's a bookstore in my town that I had books there. And I think I'm going to, my friend is opening a coffee shop, and we're going to do some book signings there. So there's lots of different ways you can sell your book.
So how many books would we need to like print to get started?
To get started. So I will tell you, when I was your age and I wrote a book and just did one book, and I kind of got a hard copy like this, and I wrote it inside the book. And I thought that was a really cool way to get started, was to write one book. But if you wanted to sell your books and do more, then you can do as many as you want. You can kind of buy some books and get started. That is totally up to you.
Okay. Also, my last question is, what is the realty range for like retail range?
Oh, the retail, for how much to charge for your book?
Yeah.
Great
That's a
question.
great question. Tony, I might ask you, what do you see as
Yeah.
normal for people to sell their book?
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's a really, really good question. It's something called metadata. And we provide in all of our premium packages something called metadata optimization. One of those pieces is to give recommended retail pricing of the book on all the versions that the author is publishing. So it really just depends on the book. For children's books, for ebooks in general, you really want it to be under $10, around $9.99 or lower. The reason is that the e-retailers start to take a larger percentage when you hit over $10. But for paperback and softcover and hardcover books, it really just depends on the book, the genre. For children's books, I mean, I probably see, $15 to $18 maybe for the hardcover, 10 to 12 for the soft cover, but it really depends. I mean, we've done children's books that are 10 pages. We've done them that are 32 pages, sometimes even, 40 pages. So it really depends on, what the book includes, how many pages, etc. But we help with all of that, and we'll make that recommendation to you based on your particular book, as we do everything. Everything is very customized to our authors. There's no cookie cutter approach.
How much, how much does it cost to print like the book or to print the book, produce it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Tony, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so it's going to depend on the trim size of the book, so how big the book is, how many pages it is, and whether it's softcover or hardcover. So again, depends on the book. We have a calculator on our website that allows authors to estimate what it would cost for them to print and get copies, both printing and shipping.
I remember using that. That's really cool.
Yeah, it'll just depend on your particular book and the size of it.
These were great questions, you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm so glad you were here. Those are such good questions. Look like there's some more questions maybe in the chat.
Yep, and I'm answering some of those too, but yeah, you can feel free to
The
jump
faster
in
of a
as well.
process. All right. Great.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, Raquel? Yeah.
Yes. Hi, how are
Hi.
you? You
Good.
probably
How are
can't
you?
see me. It's so dark in my car.
Oh,
But
you're fine.
I was wanting to ask a question in regards to illustrations and whether or not you're able to use maybe AI if you want like fantasy or real detailed illustrations, but don't necessarily want to have them hand drawn, or it may take a longer period of time and you just want them to be quickly enhanced, like maybe use a picture of my granddaughter or something like that and then turn her into a character. Are those accepted in the trade as I guess illustrations that can be used for a book, or they have to be um done by a professional illustrator and then you can yeah, so if you can explain that, I would greatly appreciate it.
Yep. You want me to take that, Becca?
Please do. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yep. So yes, you can use illustrations created by AI. That's totally acceptable. When we create illustrations for authors, we don't use AI, but we do have a lot of children's book authors who bring their own illustrations to us. They either have their own illustrator or they want to create them on their own, or through any method. But yeah, if you're providing those illustrations to us, even if created with AI, we 100% can incorporate them into your book and get it published.
Oh, okay. So you won't be, someone had told me that Amazon doesn't accept AI illustrations. How do you have to give credit for AI illustrations, or I don't know.
I mean, if you're using AI to create your own illustration, then you would be the owner of the illustrations. But yeah, we
Oh,
don't have any issue with you providing those to us and us being able to get the book published with them.
oh, okay. That's fantastic. Thank you
Yep.
so very much.
Yeah.
I think it's a cool use of it too, because you're producing it's the prompt that you're trying
Yeah.
to like the image that you're trying to create. I think there's what's cool right now in this market, or just how technology has changed. There's again, there's no right or wrong way to do this. I think you can have your own illustrations. You can use the technology tools at your disposal. You can work with an illustrator. There's just a lot of cool things you can do to get your image or your idea out there into the world.
Yep.
I haven't personally used an AI program to do illustrations. My husband actually really enjoys this. He plays with it all the time, and I'm forgetting what he uses. It wasn't for a children's book purpose, but he was just trying to create some like cartoon images for a poster he was doing. So I can't remember the exact one, but I bet if you use a good Google, you can probably find it. I've also the two AI tools I use just for my own work and for brainstorming purposes, stuff like that. I use Chat GPT and Gemini. I do think there's a better one for illustrations though.
And one of the questions in the chat too, just in case anyone missed it, was how fast of a process once you pay for a package
Yeah.
is the entire process. Someone mentioned that they're not done writing their draft yet, so it could potentially could they sign up. And the answer is yes. So most of I would say 90% of the people I talk to that sign up with us do not have their manuscript ready right away, and there's no problem with that whatsoever. We always work on our author's timeline, so it'll be up to you to get the manuscript done on your own timeline. There's no deadline for you to do so after you sign up with us. The nice thing is that you will be assigned an author manager within a business day of signing up with us. So you will have that person as a resource for you for questions, and then you'll simply just finish your manuscript on your timeline and upload that to us when you're ready. That was a really good question. So I just want to make sure everyone heard that or saw that because they missed it.
Yeah. I'm glad that question was asked too. I think since I'm starting a new project, I got the message right away, like from Kelly, and like, all right, ready when you are, but if you need some time, that's totally fine. And I need to like edit a few more things. That's another thing too, is that if you have the children's book idea and you have it written, I didn't think I needed editing help because I was like, I already wrote it. It's like 32 pages. It's really short. They caught things that I was like, oh, right. That actually is incorrect grammar, or that actually would be helpful to have a comma there. So even if it's a short book, I think it's nice that Gatekeeper Press has the editing built into the children's book packages too. So don't
Yep.
underestimate that as being a helpful part.
Yep. That's great. Thanks for that.
Yeah. These are great questions, everybody.
Yeah.
And I love our youngest authors up there with their pens
I
and
love
pencils. I
that.
think this is it's so inspiring to see
It
you thinking
is.
about writing your own book. I think that's great. Okay, I don't see any more questions coming through. But just as a reminder to folks, as we're wrapping up here, definitely grab those links that Louise put in the chat. So there's the self-publishing guide. There's a link in there.
One last question
Sure.
is, how can, um, how can age range like from 12 to, wait, from 8 to 12-year-olds, like,
Uh-huh.
you know? Or do you help publish books for up to 12 years old?
Oh, does Gatekeeper Press help kids? Is that what you're asking?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Tony, I'm going to turn to you.
Yep, yeah, we do. Yeah, so as long as there's a parent or guardian involved, yeah, we do. We have children's authors that publish with us, so their parent or guardian has been involved, so that would be the
Okay.
requirement. But yeah, we definitely publish children's books that publish books. So
Okay. So as long as you have an adult working with
yeah.
you, you can work with them too.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Um, so there's a couple more links too. I think we're just missing an N on this discount code, Louise, just so, so there's the link to the scheduling a consultation. So if you want to chat with Tony just about your project, if you want to look at some of the options for just different packages for publishing, that's available on the website gatekeeperpress.com. And then if you want to use that discount code, it's for 20% is it's significant.
Yeah.
So definitely if you want to if you have the idea you want to move forward, use that in the month of December because then it'll be 20% off. And you don't have to be in a rush to have everything done in December. I know December is a busy month, but if you want to get things started, you can use the 20%. And just tell them that I sent you because I have such good things to always say about Gatekeeper Press. I feel so it just like warms my heart every day knowing that I have these books. I think it's really been a wonderful experience to know that these books, I go visit my book at the library sometimes because again I nerd out like that. It's at our local library and I go visit Belinda Baloney and Benji Baloney in the stacks and I see them there and it's like that's always can always be there. So uh, thank you all for being with us tonight, for asking your great questions. And if you do end up publishing your book, I put my Instagram in there too. Let me know, please, because I will be very curious to come read your book.
Awesome. Thank you everyone so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.